A reporter caught up with Al Gore and asked him, hey, who are you going to vote for? Simple question, and a very logical question. And Gore replied this way. He was at one of the seminars where he teaches people on how to educate others on climate change, the severity of climate change, and obviously that's the issue that animates him the most. So he said, first of all, I understand their feelings and misgivings, talking about people who are reluctant to vote for Hillary Clinton and who generally have misgivings about this election overall. But if they're interested in my personal advice, I am voting for Hillary Clinton. I urge everyone else to do the same. I particularly urge anyone who's concerned about climate crisis, sees it as kind of a priority that I see it as, to look at the sharp contrast between the solar plan that Secretary Clinton has put forward and her stated commitment to support the Clean Power Plan, and the contrast between what she has said and is proposing with the statements of the Republican nominee, which give me great concern. So I'm going to tell you something crazy. I actually think he means it. I think he means both parts of that statement, which is he's got feelings and misgivings, and he understands your feelings and misgivings. And because Al Gore, since he's left office, has become even more progressive. So part of the reason that I support Al Gore, now, mind you, I worked with him at Current TV. A lot of you know that. If you don't know that, you should. Let me state that. But it's the reason I wanted to work with him at Current TV, and I had already talked about this on the show well before that was ever a possibility, is because he was one of the few voices that came out and said, no, the Iraq war is wrong. You shouldn't do this. And at the time, the press hated him for it. They're like, oh, yeah, now the guy who lost the election is coming out and telling us to not support Bush's foreign policy. And he's like, no, I'm not even going to run again. I'm telling you, this war is a terrible idea. Oh, sure, you're not going to run again. And all those smug guys in the press, what happened? Did he run again? No, he didn't. He was actually trying to give you a real warning that you should have listened to. He then also was one of the very few people that came out and said, Bush is destroying our civil liberties. You cannot spy on Americans like this. So, I don't know what the exact popular vision of Al Gore is, but I know that he's deeply progressive, not just on climate change, but on those other issues as well. So as a progressive, well, Hillary Clinton is, and now I'm speculating, is an establishment candidate, and my guess is that's why he might have said that sentence. Now, on the other hand, is it close on the issue of climate change, if that's what you care about, between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump? Now, come on. Even if you're the most diehard progressive, especially if you're the most diehard progressive, you know that it's not remotely close. So as much as you might have been angry at Hillary Clinton, and way more than Al Gore, you know how angry I was and how anti-establishment I am and how much I thought she was the wrong candidate in the primaries. But you can't honestly look at the policies of Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, especially on this issue, and say, oh, they're the same. They are not remotely the same. In fact, the person reporting on this at Think Progress said, about Trump, he has called global warming a hoax, denied the reality of California's devastating drought. How can you deny that? But on the other hand, he denies a lot of realities, doesn't he? Anyway, promised he would kill all domestic climate-related regulation like the EPA's Clean Power Plan. Now, look, on that last one alone, gone, no way. You can vote for other people. You can't, if you care about climate change, you can't vote for Donald Trump. It makes no logical sense. He says, I'm going to end all climate-related regulations. That's so insane. It's mind-boggling. So one more quote from Trump, which again is unbelievable. He says, quote, we're going to cancel the Paris Climate Agreement. Not renegotiated, not I think it's a little bit, wrong around the edges. Hey, I think we can get a better deal. No, cancel it. I don't care. I don't know why I'm emphasizing this so much. It's so obvious. He thinks climate change is a hoax. Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Having that guy win is not an option. You might have other options, but that ain't one of them if you care about this issue, let alone others. Now that brings us back to Gore. How about third-party candidates? Well, he says, I would also urge them to look carefully, as I know they have, at the consequences of going in another direction for the third or fourth alternative. The harsh reality is that we have two principal choices, and I am supporting Hillary Clinton. Again, I respect those who analyze the situation differently, but in my experience, it matters a lot. Now, that's the understatement of the century. So obviously what he's referring to is his own race in 2000, where a third-party candidate, and in fact a fourth-party candidate, made a huge difference and perhaps all the difference in the world. Now, there are some deniers who will say that, no, Ralph Nader made no difference at all. No, that's a preposterous claim. So were there a lot of factors? Of course there were. Could Al Gore have run a better campaign? Anyone could have, and I'm sure he could have. No question about that. Would I have picked a different VP? I would have, right? That doesn't mean I'm right, but I would have. Did Pat Buchanan make a big difference? That's why I talk about a fourth alternative. He did, because of the butterfly ballots in Florida, a lot of people accidentally voted for Buchanan when they meant to vote for Gore. Oh my God, there was so many votes, it made the difference. And of course, the biggest difference maker was the Supreme Court. They said, stop counting. If it turns out Florida had recounted under any system, Al Gore would have won not only the popular vote, but the Electoral College. He should have been president. But was Ralph Nader part of the factors that decided Florida? Of course. If Nader wasn't running and didn't get all those votes, Gore would have won despite all those injustices. So if anyone knows how a third-party candidate can burn you, it's Al Gore. Now, if you want to dismiss his experience or you want to say he's biased because of that, I understand. But that experience is real. It actually happened. And like Gore, I'm not telling you, okay, hey, because of that, make sure you vote for Hillary Clinton. We're telling you what to do, okay? No, just keep that in mind. It is a logical thing to consider if you're voting in a swing state. So if you, despite all that, you say, hey, no, one of these other candidates is closer to my positions, and I'm going to vote that way based on principle, et cetera. Okay, but understand that these are also the consequences that are at play here. And if you want to ignore those consequences, or you think there are other issues that overwhelm those consequences, okay, but at least make an informed decision.